for Kids. Hello, and welcome to the Music Podcast for Kids. Today's episode, we are learning about Music of Ireland Part 2. In this episode, we continue our journey and even get to interview an Irish music specialist to learn more about music of Ireland.
And now the music joke of the day.
We love jokes. So if you have a joke, please visit our website, themusicpodcastforkids.com, to submit your joke.
And guess what? It doesn't even have to be a music joke. It can be any joke.
We will read and enjoy your joke on the podcast and also let everyone know who it came from and where you are in this great, big, wonderful music world.
Our joke of the day is... Well, first, we just wanted to say that we have been getting your jokes, which is awesome, so keep them coming. Here are a couple from our listeners. This joke today comes from Nico. Okay, what is Beethoven's favorite fruit?
Huh?
Banana, banana. Great joke, Nico. This joke comes from Emma. What is the mountain that sleeps forever?
Huh?
Mount Everest.
Make sure to send in your jokes by visiting our website, themusicpodcastforkids.com. A link to the website can be found in the show notes.
And now the music word of the day.
Music word of the day. Music word of the day. Music word of the day. Music word of the day. Yeah! In part 1 of the Music of Ireland adventure, we discuss meter as the music word of the day. We further discuss the meter of music from Ireland in our continuation of the journey today, so I wanted to recap the word meter. There are many sides to meter, but the one angle to recap on is the combination of how music sounds and its relation to meter. If you hear music that has a marching feel to it, it's using the meter of 2. If you can hear music that makes you sway back and forth, it can be in a meter of 3 or a compound meter, which we discuss further in today's episode. And music that makes you want to bop your head while you dance is in the most common meter of Western music, the meter of 4. Another word to discuss today is the drone. And not like a drone that flies around, and also not like when someone keeps droning on and on and on about their life story. Like that one time when I was riding my bike on the fresh new pavement that the pavement guy just put down. Such a nice, smooth ride on my super sweet bike. So excited to get out on the fresh, new, hot blacktop. Ouch! I didn't even put my shoes on. And of course, I had to stop to see something, so I stopped. I hopped off with my bare feet right onto the fresh, new, hot blacktop. Oh, hey there, Mr. Quarternote. Well, you scared me.
Well, Mr. Henry, you keep droning on and on about your life story while we're trying to learn the music word of the day. Drone.
Oh, right. I got a little carried away with that story. Yeah.
Yeah, so about that story, Mr. Henry.
Yeah, that story.
So you walked on hot blacktop with no shoes, didn't you, Mr. Henry?
Yeah, let's get back to the music word of the day, drone. In music, a drone is a note or a couple of notes that is held out for a long period of time. The note sustains. Let's take a listen to this drone. We will learn about this instrument from Ireland today. That has a bottom end note that sustains or is held continuously. as the other notes are played over top. Awesome! And that's the music word of the day.
And now the main subject of the day.
Alrighty then. Got some food and ready to roll.
Oh, great, I'm starving. Well, we best get on our way, Mr. Hairy Legs.
Have a great trip.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Hairy Legs. Oh, and sorry again for smacking you with the sand anchor. Whoops. Yeah.
So, how many more days until we reach Ireland?
Well, let me look at the hot air balloon app I downloaded. Let's see, looks like, it says no map available for this long of a trip.
What? Oh boy.
I'm sure my signal's just weak is all. Once we get back up there, it'll kick back in. No worries. Here we go. "225 days, 4 hours, 25 minutes, and 32 seconds later." 33 seconds. 34 seconds.
Okay, Mr. Henry. Maybe we put the penny whistle away. Phew, are we there yet? I'm kind of getting sick of these granola bars.
Wait a tick. I think I see it. Ireland.
Wow, Ireland. Look at those cliffs.
Yeah, those are the cliffs of Moher. See, I knew we would make it.
Yeah, I guess you were right.
Okay, let's make sure we land this thing nicely. Lift this thing up and throw out that sand anchor and...
Look out!
Oh, no, not again! Oh, jeez. Mr. Hairy Legs?
Yeah, Mr. Hairy Legs. How did you get to Ireland?
Well, when you said you were going to Ireland, I decided to get on a plane to check it out. Been here for almost 6 months now, and I love it.
6 months? You mean we've been in a hot air balloon for 6 months, Mr. Henry?
Oh, yeah, it went by fast, though, Mr. Fite. Time flies when you're having fun. Hey, what's that sound?
Wow, cool. Those are the Julian pipes. They're just like bagpipes.
Oh, yeah, bagpipes. That's when you have a bunch of little pipes in a big bag and you shake it around like a percussion instrument. Huh? Why are you looking at me that way, Mr. Fite?
Oh boy, Mr. Henry. No, bagpipes sound like this. To play bagpipes, you use your air to fill up a bag. Then you press the bag with your arm as you place your fingers on different holes to create different notes and sounds.
Oh, cool. I hear a droning sound too.
Yeah, exactly. We learned about the drone sound when learning about Music of India in episode number 7.
Right. The droning sound is when you have a continuous note or set of notes that constantly play while the melody or tune is performed.
Right. We hear a drone in the bagpipes as well.
The bagpipes and Julian pipes are a little different. To play the bagpipes, the musician uses their air to fill up the bag. But the Julian pipes do not require the musician to blow into the bags. Rather, there are bellows that are pressed by the arm to generate the air into the instrument.
Bellows?
Elbows?
No, Mr. Hairy Legs, not elbows. Bellows. A bellow is a device that you press together to create a large amount of air. Bellows are found in the Julian pipes to pump air into the instrument, making that cool sound.
Pretty cool stuff.
Oh, I hear more music coming from that restaurant over there. Let's go check it out.
Yeah, let's get some food too.
Oh yeah, I'm starving. Boy, that music sounds great. Traditional Irish music is known for its storytelling.
Yeah, for sure. And a traditional music session or play-along is known in Irish as a seashun.
Sweet. Looks like there is a violin, acoustic guitar, bow run, and that little box thing with buttons on it?
Ah, yes. That's the concertina. The concertina became more popular in a revival of traditional Irish music. The concertina is also called a button accordion. There are a bunch of buttons that you press while squeezing the instrument back and forth to make a sound.
Makes me want to get up and do a little jiggeroonie.
Yeah, Mr. Hairy Legs. Actually, a jig is a type of music that has a certain feel, that in total music nerd talk is in a compound meter.
Yes, compound meter, or also known as compound time, consists of a beat and a measure that is broken up into 3 separate parts. The numbers typically associated with compound meter include 6, 9, 12, 15, and more. Theoretically, compound meter can be translated into simple time, but the use of...
Okay, Mr. Henry, that probably went straight over our heads.
Yes, sorry about that. Maybe we just focus on how compound meter sounds or feels?
Yeah, good thinking. We talked about meter as the music word of the day today. Compound meter has a sound like this. When you hear music in compound time, it usually has us swaying back and forth within our movement or dancing.
Exactly. And the jig was a popular feel in Irish music that allowed people to dance and feel a certain way. Music is pretty powerful in its ability to get people to move and feel great while doing it.
Oh, yes. I'm feeling happier and happier with this here jig.
Nice moves, Mr. Hairy Legs.
Oh yeah, get it going, Mr. Hairy Legs. Some of the most popular traditional Irish bands are the Dublineers, Chieftains, and Clancy Brothers.
Yuppers, so if you're ever in the mood for some great music, check out those cats.
Cats? They are not cats, Mr. Fite.
Oh, that's just a figure of speech. Back in the day, in jazz music, they would call a cool musician a cat, which, oh boy, that confused look again. Okay, forget it.
Yeah, well, this has been a pretty cool adventure. So much cool music in Ireland. Let's sit back and enjoy the music and food. Then, we'll get back home in our hot air balloon.
The hot air balloon? Yeah, right, Mr. Henry. You won't drag me on that thing again.
Oh, come on. We can play What Instrument Does That Cloud Look Like? The whole way home. It'll be great. I'm getting pretty good at that penny whistle. Oh, then we can stop to see Paris and Italy and Greenland. Oh, and I always wanted to see Egypt.
And that's the Music of Ireland.
Time for the Super Duper Music Challenge.
It's time to test your ears.
Test your ears? I don't think you can really give your ears a test, Mr. Henry. I mean, how do your ears hold a pencil without bleeding?
Oh, no, Mr. Fite. When I say test your ears, I mean listening to something and trying to figure it out through hearing it.
Ah, right, of course. Time to play the Music Podcast for Kids Super Duper Music Listening Challenge.
I don't know, Mr. Fite. A little bit long of a title?
Yeah, we need to work that one out.
Yeah, we will. We'll work it out. Okay, on to the challenge. In today's episode, we learned all about the music of Ireland and got to hear some cool instruments that are a part of traditional Irish music. So we wanted to test your listening skills. I'm going to play 2 examples, and you have to guess which instrument is from Ireland.
1.
Here is the first instrument. Here is the second instrument.
Two.
Here is the first instrument. Here is the second instrument.
Three.
Here is the first instrument. Here is the second instrument.
Four.
Here is the first instrument. Here is the second instrument. Check your answers by going to the show notes. We hope you did a great job. Just chatting, just chatting, just chatting, just chatting, just chatting, just chatting, just chatting. Mark Gunn is an American musician and podcaster, and known for his performances on an instrument called the autoharp. Mark has and continues his amazing award-winning podcast called Irish and Celtic Music Podcast. It was great to talk with Mark about the music of Ireland. So let's get to the chat. Hello, Mark Gunn, and welcome to the Music Podcast for Kids.
So, Mark, we always like to start out by asking our special guests about their music background as a child. So what experiences did you have as a child in the school setting and maybe outside of school as well?
I didn't do much in school. Most of mine was outside of it. My family, my mom and dad both played musical instruments. So I played the piano, got lessons for about a year. It didn't take very well. I didn't like to practice nearly enough, but it was a lot of fun. In high school, I picked up the guitar and got lessons again outside of school. And that clicked a little bit more, aside from the problems with my guitar, which was it was a really big instrument and it cut off the circulation in my arm. So it wasn't until college that I think I really started nailing down playing the guitar.
So as a guitarist, who were some of your big inspirations as you began your guitar career?
It wasn't so much about playing guitar as it was being Elvis Presley. He was my idol growing up, and so I wanted to be a songwriter like him. It wasn't until much later that I realized that he didn't write any songs, but I fell in love with his music, and so that's first thing I started learning was how to play songs by Elvis Presley. Yeah. And it just went from there.
Awesome. So the guitar, you were performing in high school, you were performing in college.
Yeah.
But the instrument that you perform now is the autoharp. So, yes. Super interested in this instrument and kind of how it works, and giving our listeners a little more idea of, what it looks like and how it's played and things like that. So could you tell us more about the autoharp?
All right. Yeah. The autoharp is a sort of triangular instrument. You usually find it in grade school, but it's basically a very simple instrument because it's you press a button and it creates a chord, and all you have to do is strum, and it creates this gorgeous sound. It's got this very full body. It's got 5 octaves. It's based on the zither, which is a much older instrument, about 1,000 years old. But the modern adaptation started in the late 1800s, 1890s, and it's got a beautiful sound too. And it's so simple to play because, again, all you have to be able to do is press a button and strum, and that button, that strum will be everything in the chord. And it just sounds fantastic. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, that's neat. And having it be such an instrument that is a little easier to play, it would be a great instrument for kids, right?
Yes, definitely,
to get
definitely.
Just to start experimenting with things. So that's cool. And actually, Bruce, I don't know if this was the deal for you, but so we're both elementary music teachers.
Right.
And so I've been teaching for 15 years. When I first came there, autoharps must have been the rage, in elementary school for kids. Yeah.
Well, they were like the ukuleles of today.
Yes.
We think ukulele.
Yes.
It's a simple instrument. Yeah, I think they were very similar.
Yeah, the toughest part of the autoharp is the tuning, because there are 36 strings and they go out of tune fairly easily. I spend at least a good 15 minutes making sure the instrument is in tune before I even start playing. And once it's in tune, it'll usually last at least a good solid 30 minutes if I'm not playing it too hard. But sometimes it'll go for the full hour or whatever before I have to sit back down and making sure all the strings are in tune. And you start hearing little notes out of tune in the process.
Yeah, cool.
So you went from being Elvis to, or wanting to be Elvis, to Irish and Celtic music. So
Yeah.
could you give us some insight on what instruments you might see in a traditional Irish Celtic band?
Yeah, so the autoharp is not one. The autoharp is an American folk instrument. Again, it was created in the late 1800s based on a German design, popularized through Sears catalog, and so it's not one of the instruments, but it is a great singer's instrument, a great folk instrument. If you like to sing, then it's a wonderful instrument to have. Now, in the Irish music world, typically you're going to have one of my favorites, which is the fiddle, the flute or the penny whistle, the Irish the octave mandolin, and the mandolin, derivative of the fiddle. You'll also have the Ilian pipes, which are a form of bagpipes for the Irish. There's the Irish drum, which is called the boran. And all of that, those are the type of instruments you'll usually find in an Irish session. A lot of times also a guitar. Guitar has become very popular as well, though there is usually a slightly different tuning for most guitars.
Yeah, that's cool. Something that I saw, I was lucky enough to travel to Ireland, and it was like an acoustic duo, and I guess you could, this could be all across the world, but it was the first time I had seen it. They had put a microphone inside the case of their guitar, and they used that as and they would stomp on it like a...
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, that's so cool. Like I never even thought to do that, but it just fit that driving music so well that we find in
when you have the musical styles that are most common in Ireland, you have the reel and the jig, and when that sounds like very much a great tactic for a reel, because reels are driving 4/4 beats, so it's got this really great driving sound, whereas the Irish jig, which has this sort of a lilting,
a little more, right?
They're wonderful sounds in general.
Yeah, that's cool. So in jazz music, players, they're following a type of form, which for listeners, that's basically a way of saying like the way the music's organized.
Yeah.
And so, like, when you're in that situation as a jazz musician, you kind of understand where you are in the music, and there's a lot of improvisation. And even though it may not seem like to a listener watching, it might not seem like you're communicating, but there's a high level of communication. Is there something similar in traditional Irish music?
Interestingly, so New Orleans was one of the top 3 immigration spots for the Irish during the Potato Blight in the 1800s. And so there's a huge Irish influence in New Orleans, which of course New Orleans is also one of the places considered the birthplace of jazz. I have a friend who wants to do a research paper on the idea that Irish music was one of the big influencers of jazz.
Wow.
Because musically, yes, jazz definitely has a solid form and such. Traditional Irish music has a very solid form as well. You have the reels and the jigs and whatnot, but there is less of the improv aspect that you find in Irish music than jazz. Usually what you'll have a tune, and the tune is a melody that fits into a certain form. Again, reels, jigs, polkas, mazurkas, or whatever they might be. You're going to have all these very specific formats, and then during the set, you might change to a different tune. In that same set, it might be in the same key, might be in a different key, but it's very different. But at the same time, if once you know the melody, it's very easy to follow along, because all of a sudden you're in that same format. which is, again, very much in like the jazz sessions, whereas they might include a little bit more improv and, variations and whatnot. In the Irish session, you might have a little bit less of that, but there's still the same structure that the jazz session will have. So it's a really interesting comparison between the two, I find.
Yeah, that is really cool. Huh.
Yeah.
So you have a podcast called
Yes.
Irish and Celtic Music Podcast.
Yeah.
So can you tell us more about the podcast and the mission that it has?
Yeah, so I started the podcast in 2005 in the early days of podcasting.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think it was, less than a year into podcasting when the podcast started. And the show is a music podcast. It's like a radio show, and it features an hour-long show of music by Celtic musicians. And the idea is to celebrate Celtic culture through music.
Yeah.
So now, not all of the music is traditional Irish music, like I was describing these reels and jigs and such. There's a lot of songs. There's a lot of fun sing-alongs, which is one of the other big things about Irish music, is the ballads and such, and a lot more fusions of traditional Irish songs and tunes with contemporary music, the Celtic rock genre, and the various many different fusions of that. And so my podcast is centered around, again, celebrating all of these fusions and making them readily available no matter where you are around the world and no matter what style of Celtic music you have around the world. Because again, when the Irish, I put out a CD called How America Saved Irish Music. And the idea is basically that all this, the traditional Irish music came out of Ireland and went to the United States, and went to Australia, went to Germany, went to Italy, went to Russia and Japan. And all these fusions came back and created an almost new style of traditional Celtic music, and such that, songs like Danny Boy, one of the most famous quote unquote Irish songs, is actually a song that has an Irish melody, but it was written by an English lawyer, which but it's become an essential part of the Irish music world. And so it's a fascinating, again, it's the fusion of these cultures, and by bringing them all together, we are able to more greatly able to appreciate and celebrate these different culture, all the influences that have merged together, and the diversity of Celtic music.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's something. Well, Mark Gunn, thanks so much for being on the show. And we wish you all the best in the future with your music, with your podcast. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. You take care. Sláinte.
Time to wrap it up, folks.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Music Podcast for Kids.
We hope you enjoyed the show, and most importantly, learned something cool today about music.
Remember to send in your jokes or even a topic in music you would like us to discuss by visiting our website, themusicpodcastforkids.com. If you are interested in awesome educational and fun songs for your kids to listen and sing along with, please visit brucefite.com. Music is available to download with iTunes, CD Baby, and Facebook, and most streaming platforms like Spotify and Amazon Radio. Links will be found in the show notes.
If you are interested in learning how to play the piano with a fun and engaging curriculum geared toward kids, please subscribe to Mr. Henry's YouTube channel called Mr. Henry's Music World. Links will be found in the show notes.
Please visit iTunes to leave a review of the podcast, and also share the podcast with friends, relatives, aliens, whoever.
Again, we thank you so much for tuning in.